At Claire and Tom's wedding reception, Beth and David couldn't stop talking about Margot and Peter on the way home. "It's eerie, isn't it?" David said, gripping the steering wheel. "It's like they were written from the same script as us. Even their arguments felt familiar." Beth nodded, replaying the uncanny moments in her mind. The way Margot had interrupted Peter to make a joke, exactly the way Beth would have done. Peter's obscure knowledge of vintage cameras down to the model David had inherited from his grandfather. And Margot's nervous laugh, identical to Beth's. "What are the odds?" Beth murmured, her voice tinged with something she couldn't name. Over the next few days, they kept finding reasons to talk about them. Little things, how Peter and David's taste in whiskey matched, how Margot tilted her head just so when listening, the kind of details you don't notice unless you're looking too closely. "I invited them to your birthday," Beth said one evening, scrolling through her phone. "I hope they come." But they didn't. Weeks passed, then months. Every invitation met with enthusiastic acceptance. Every event met with absence. No reasons, no replies, just silence. Then, at 3:13 a.m. on a rain-soaked Tuesday, the doorbell rang. Beth sat up in bed, the sound carving through her dreams like a scalpel. "Who is that?" David mumbled. Beth hesitated, dread coiling in her chest. "Stay here," she whispered, slipping out of bed. At the door, she peeked through the peephole. The distorted shapes of Margot and Peter stood on the porch, drenched, their faces blurred by the glass, but unmistakably them. She opened the door a crack. "What?" "We're here now," Margot said. Her voice didn't sound wet or cold or tired. It sounded smooth, like a polished stone in her throat. Before Beth could respond, Peter spoke. "We wanted to wait until we could do this right." Beth opened the door wider. Margot and Peter stepped in, bringing with them a strange scent. Not wet earth or rain, but something clinical. Sterile. Beth's breath caught. Margot's clothes, the shirt, the jeans, they weren't just similar to hers. They were the same. Not a replica, but an exact match. Beth's gaze darted to Peter. David's old pajama pants, complete with a frayed drawstring and a bleach stain. "How?" "You've been excellent subjects," Peter said, his voice cool and detached, yet uncannily familiar. Margot smiled, but it wasn't a human smile. It was too deliberate, like a child mimicking an adult. "It takes time to get the details right. Every movement, every habit. We couldn't rush it." Beth stumbled back. "What are you talking about?" "You don't understand yet," Peter said, tilting his head in a way that mirrored David perfectly. "But you will." Before Beth could move, Margot stepped forward, her posture too controlled, her gaze too direct. "We've learned everything," she said. "Your patterns, your thoughts, your shape. There's no need for the originals anymore." Beth's knees buckled as she watched Margot's skin begin to ripple. The coffee stain on her sleeve bled away as the fabric shifted. Her hair darkened, curling at the ends. Her nose retracted slightly, her chin sharpening until she was staring at herself. Peter was changing too. His spine elongated, his shoulders hunched forward, bones popped and stretched. David's face emerged through the shifting mass like a reflection surfacing from deep water. "We only needed time to perfect the exchange," they said, their voices fused into a seamless duet, the echo of Beth and David's own voices, but with something hollow beneath. Beth tried to scream, but her throat wouldn't obey. Beth, reached out and touched her face. fingers trailing across her jaw as if testing the texture of something foreign. "So fragile," she murmured. Peter leaned down, his shadow swallowing Beth's form. "You won't feel it. It's not like dying. It's relocation." Their smiles widened, too wide, too sharp. Beth could feel herself fracturing, her body no longer responding, her thoughts slipping away like sand through a sieve. The last thing she saw before everything collapsed was her own face gazing down at her, filled with an unfamiliar curiosity. "You'll be part of us forever," they whispered. "Isn't that beautiful?" And then there was nothing.